Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Zara and today I am going to be recommending you 6 intermediate / advanced Grimdark books. I have ordered these from kind of intermediate all the way to advanced. This is going to be the first one that I do in this kind of little series that I'm doing about grimdark and dark fantasy. So let me know if there's any kind of particular kind of subgenres you want me to talk about. But without further ado, let's get started. The first book that I am going to recommend is the Broken Empire trilogy by Mark Lawrence. Now, funnily enough, I've not really talked about Mark Lawrence much on my channel, and it's just because I read the Broken Empire trilogy quite before I started my YouTube channel. So I've just never talked about him, which I think is really sad because I really love the Broken Empire trilogy. It was the first kind of real grimdark series that I read. I'd read the First Law trilogy by Joe Abercrombie before that, but I feel like Broken Empire is like another level of grimness and darkness compared to the First Law trilogy. We follow a character called Jorg, and Jorg is one of the most unlikable characters I have ever read in my entire reading career. He's just really twisted, but he's also got a lot of depth. The series is a trilogy, and as you get, by the time that you get to the last book, you start to really understand why Jorg is the way that he is. And that's something that I think anyone can empathize with, to be honest. And I really liked it for that reason. Broken Empire, I think, is one of those series that when I was reading it, I kind of felt like my heart was racing the entire time because there's just a lot happening. There's also these like really weird sci-fi elements. And when I say weird, I mean it in a good way, where like, if I remember correctly, he's wearing like the character wears like a Rolex. Like, I don't know. It's really like bizarre, but like in the best way possible. And I just really like the fact that we're set in this really, really dark world with these really unlikable, literally none of the characters are likable and they're all just bad people. Compared to like some of the other grimdark that I read where like you still kind of root for them. No, I like just literally did not root for any of these people apart from maybe Jorg and like one other character in the first book. But it was just fantastic. I remember finishing it and just thinking, oh man, I cannot wait to read what Mark Lawrence has written next. He's written quite a lot of books and I'm actually going to read his new book very soon and I cannot wait. By the time this video comes out, I've probably already read it and I'll be filming my review. But he is a phenomenal writer and that was his debut trilogy, I believe. And he's written more trilogies set in the same world. And I think the next one is Red Sister, which is a series that I am dying to read. I actually have them. So I'm hoping to get to that either this year or next year. But it's one of these series, why you should read it. You should read it if you just want like completely unlikable characters, just a little bit of everything, lots of kind of fighting and swearing and violence, but then there's also intrigue and there's also kind of lots of twists and turns. So it's just got a bit of everything. And I feel like if you like grimdark, this is a series that you have to read. The next book on my list is also a series, but only the first book is out, and that is Empire of the Vampire by Jay Kristoff. I did a review of this book on my channel. Still to this day, I'm surprised that I liked Jay Kristoff book just because of everything that I've heard about the author and his previous books, but I loved it. I loved Empire of the Vampire. I literally read it in like a day and it's like an 800-page book and I just devoured it because I really loved the main character. I really loved the way that the book was written. I really loved the kind of progression, the pacing. I just loved every single thing about it, apart from one thing, which was the way that female characters were written, which I hated, and I talked about that in my review. It was the only reason why I didn't give it a 5 stars. But it's one of those books where it's kind of a, you know, it's a take on vampires, which I have to say I'm not a fan of vampires as a fantasy race. I just don't care. It's not really something that I'm personally very interested in. I'd much rather learn about wizards or elves or whatever. I just don't really care about vampires. But yet he made these vampires have depth and feel different to what we typically see in kind of vampire literature. And I just thought he did a really good job of crafting characters that felt incredibly real and raw and vulnerable and relatable. And that's ultimately what we all want, or what I want in my books. The next book on my list is not really a fantasy book, though it's written like a fantasy book. And I'm going to talk about it anyway because it's one of my favorite authors, and that is The Company by KJ Parker. This book is like a psychological horror and you don't really realize it until after the fact. As I was reading this book, I felt this deep sense of dread, this deep sickness. I felt like something was not right. Toish Knesson, to this day, is still one of the most twisted characters I have ever read. And I mean that as a compliment. And it's just one of those books where you just don't really know what's happening, but you know something is happening and that it's not right and something feels off. And the whole time something feels off and you don't really get a resolution to that feeling even after the book finishes. And I just remember after I finished reading the book, I genuinely had to just read something funny and watch something funny because I just felt really sad. But I still to this day don't even really know why. It was just really sad. There's like very little hope. The characters are very fleshed out in typical Parker style. And the world is just very unforgiving and very morbid, like what Parker does, right? But then there's still this little bit of humor. There's still this little bit of undercurrent of, you know, this kind of mystery bit that kind of brings it together in a way that no other author could do it. And it's one of my favorite books that I've ever read. It's just phenomenal. And if you like Grimdark, admittedly, it's not fantasy. There's really no fantasy in it. But if you like fantasy, I think you will love this book. Next on my list is a series that I've not really talked about on my channel because I want to finish the series before I do an entire review of it. But I am going to mention it here because I've read 4 books of the 7 now, and that is The Stone Dance and the Chameleon by Ricardo Pinto. Very unique Grimdark series. Literally never heard anybody talking about it. I came across it because of a friend in a Discord taking a picture of the cover, and I just got drawn to the cover. I ordered the first 3 books, and I just really enjoyed it. The books are also generally really short. Only one book is over 300 pages. All the rest are under 300 pages. And it is just the most unique story that I've ever consumed in fantasy. And I'm not going to mention anything about the plot because it's one of those books that I didn't know anything about the plot. I literally bought it because of the covers. It's the first time that I've done that, like recently, like genuinely. I don't really do cover buys. For me, it has to be either recommended by someone that I trust, or I have to at least find the plot somewhat interesting if it's a new author. I came across the cover, didn't read anything about it, and I just loved it. It's just, I'm 4 books in, there's 7 books, and it's just this incredible love story, ultimately set in the backdrop of a lot of politics and a lot of hate and a lot of conflict. And there's this constant sense of, are these 2 people ever going to end up together? And there's this constant sense of sadness as a result of that. I eat that stuff up. I love that when we are very character focused, and it's really about these 2 people at the center of this much broader story. But because of events that are happening out of the control of these 2 characters, it's really impacting their relationship. And I just loved it. I loved it. It is, I would say it is romance, but I wouldn't say it's a typical romance book in that sense. It's really about this connection between these 2 characters and how they are there for each other beyond kind of, you know, physical or even just emotionally. It's really a deep love story that I think kind of spans beyond what we typically get in fantasy romance. I wouldn't even classify this as fantasy romance because it's about so much more than that. And I do think that if you like dark fantasy, this is one of those books that you would really enjoy because there's just so much happening and there's so many layers and it's just phenomenal. Watch this space for my review once I finish it. I'm planning to finish the series by, I would say, where are we? We're getting to April. I would say by June, I'm planning to finish the series so that I can do my review and wrap it up. All right, so next on my list, this is not going to be a surprise to anybody. We have The Second Apocalypse by R. Scott Baker. Definitely the most advanced on this list. Deeply philosophical, very multi-layered, very character-centric. Lots happening, lots of politicking, lots of battles, and just lots of crazy shit basically happening. And it's just absolutely incredible. It's now that I've come out of it and I've finished all 7 books, I can honestly say, hand on my heart, that this is one of the best series, if not the best written series that I've ever read. Whether it's one of my favorites, it is one of my favorites. I don't know if it's my favorite series of all time yet. I don't know if it's taken that moniker just yet. I feel like it could upon reread, but it is without a doubt the best written series that I've ever read. And that is just a testament to R. Scott Baker and his ability to create really, really complex worlds and talk about them in a very kind of sensitive manner. And if you like Grimdark and you like dark fantasy and you've read a couple now and you kind of want to up your game, this is the series to read. The only thing I will say, read it slowly. Just read it slowly. Like I literally used to read like one chapter a day. I think The Warrior Prophet I read pretty quickly because I just loved that book so much. And The Judging Eye I also read within like 3 days because, again, love that book. But the ones that are slightly more philosophical, take those ones slower and just really kind of think about what you're reading, because it's one of those series that really warrants just taking your time with it, like genuinely. I do kind of wish that I'd read the last book a little bit slower, but anyway, it doesn't matter. I'm going to do a reread of it either next year or the year after, and we'll definitely go a lot slower. The last one on my list is actually a manga that I'm about halfway through and I'm loving it, and that is Berserk by Kentaro Miura. Now, this is a first manga that I picked up even before Full Metal Alchemist, and it's wild. It's wild. Definitely don't read it if you're on a train or in any public place, or if you have people around you. It's very graphic and in every single regard, and it's very bizarre in places, but at the same time the bizarreness makes sense. It's very fitting and in tone with the manga. But we are essentially following the character of Guts essentially on his journey. I'm not going to say anything beyond that. And he is a warrior, he's a fighter, and he is, you know, he kind of just does what he wants to do to get the job done. And I like Guts as a character. I think despite being very unlikable as a character, I think he's very multi-layered, and I'm very curious to see how the manga wraps up once I get to the end of it, because I'm closer to finishing it now and I'm very excited. I think I've got about 12 volumes left, so not long to go. So there we have it. Those are 6 intermediate to advanced Grimdark books, mangas, series that I would recommend. I will be doing another video like this. I have so many recommendations now that I've been really upping my game in the Grimdark stakes. But let me know if you have any recommendations or if you've read any of these, and I'll see you in the next video. Stay safe, everybody. Take care, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.